Sharing.
Yes, now you should be able to share.
Okay, share screen. Let's see here. Can you? Okay, what do you see? Do you see Namo Vishnu Padaya?
Yes.
Okay. All right, this is the verse for today. It's Bhagavad-gita, chapter 3, verse 17. So everything's okay? You can hear me all right? Is that correct? Yeah, okay. All right, just a couple of things. Actually, I made a couple of notes. All right, I spent some time creating a kind of a lesson plan here. And I hope to go through this fairly quickly. Now, this section of Bhagavad Gita has been covering Yagya, which is kind of a specialty of mine. So that's all. I don't need to ask that. Yastvatma ratir eva syad atma triptascha manava atman yeva cha santushtas tasya karyam navidyate. So shall we do this responsibly, or how shall we do this? Do you want?
I think, Prabhu, we can listen to you recite it without our following, if that's convenient to you, if you like that approach. Otherwise, we can do. Yeah.
That's fine. Yastvatmanatir eva syad atman triptascha manava atmanyeva cha santushtas tasya karyam navidyate. Yastvatmanatir eva syad atman triptascha manava atmanyeva cha santushtas tasya karyam navidyate. Yah means one who, two, but atmarati means taking pleasure in the self. Atma, certainly. Syat, remains. Atma tripta, self-illuminated. Cha, and manava, a man. Atmani, in himself. Eva, only. Cha, and santushta, perfectly satiated. Tasya, his. Karyam, duty. Na, does not vidyate, exist. Translation: but for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So I'll say this again. But it starts with the word but, which is, it indicates a reference to the previous verse or verses. Just to remind you, I mean, we're going to be going through some review here, but just to remind you, the previous verses were concerned with karma and yagya. And in this verse, the last line, tasya karyam, karyam indicates karma. The only difference between karma and karyam is karya means that which should be done, or that, it's like saying that karma, which should be done. So this is, it's changing the subject, or changing the direction of the conversation. And by the way, for those who haven't been attending the previous classes, this is Krishna's speaking to Arjuna. He's instructing Arjuna. So again, but for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So keep in mind, Atma Rati and Atmanyeva, Atmani, Atma Tripta, and Atmanyeva. So Atma, we're talking about Atma. When Prabhupada says self in Sanskrit, that's Atma. All right, Prabhupada's purport. A person who is fully, now this is one paragraph, but I've just divided it into sentences. It's a very short purport. A person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna consciousness no longer has any duty to perform. Due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within him or within is instantly cleansed, an effect of many, many thousands of yagya performances. That's a reference to the previous several verses. By such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. His duty thus becomes self-illuminated by the grace of the Lord, and therefore he no longer has any obligations to the Vedic injunctions. Such a Krishna conscious person is no longer interested in material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine, women, and similar infatuations. So I've written this as a summary of that purport. First of all, Prabhupada says, a person who is satisfied by service to Krishna has no duty or no dharmic obligation. As a result of many yagyas, that means Vedic dharma. There's a higher dharma that's the Bhagavatam speaks of, paro dharma. But dharmic obligation in the sense of the Vedas. As a result of many yagyas, their impiety is cleansed. That person's impiety is cleansed, and by that cleansing, they are confident of or fixed in their relationship with Krishna. They are self-illuminated and not obliged to follow the dharma of the Vedas. They are not interested in material activities or enjoyments. Now, I'm just going to go over the previous several verses from 8 to 16. Those verses, I'm going to read these through quickly. Those verses were concerned with karma and with yagya. Now, in the beginning, you'll see do your duty. And I put in parentheses here karma, because karma is used in the Sanskrit. And Prabhupada sometimes translates the word karma as duty and sometimes as work. But I'm just using the word karma to remind us that we're talking about karma. Do your duty, karma. Action is better than inaction. One cannot even maintain the body without work. Karma must be a yagya for Vishnu, otherwise it binds one to the world. Vishnu created humans and devas along with yagya and said, yagya will satisfy your desires and give you prosperity. By yagya, you will please the devas and they will nourish you. The devas control life's necessities. Being satisfied with yagya, they will supply necessities. But one who enjoys them without yagya to the devas is a thief. Devotees are liberated from such sins because they eat food offered in yagya. Others who eat for their own enjoyment eat sin. All beings thrive on grains produced from rain. Rain comes from yagya, and yagya comes from duty, karma. Karma is prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas come from the Supreme Absolute. Thus, the all-pervading Absolute is eternally situated in yagya. One who does not follow this well-established cycle of yagya leads a useless life of sin, delighting only in the senses. Now that's verse 16, and we're discussing verse 17. So that was the note that this was sort of the this verse 16 was like the summary of all the previous 8 to 15. So I'll say again, one who does not follow this well-established cycle of yagya leads a useless life of sin, delighting only in the senses. So just as a kind of a summary of not all those verses, but to give the essence, from the Supreme arose the Vedas, and from the Vedas arose Yagya. From Yagya comes rain, and from rain comes food. From food comes the living beings. From the living beings again comes karma, meaning the living beings are acting. Now, karma is prescribed in the Vedas, and from karma comes yagya. By yagya, one maintains the body and attains the supreme. Now, some people say, I have to look this up and see if Prabhupada said this, but some people explain that when one is born, most people know that one is born with karma. Based on karma, we get a body. But along with karma comes yagya. So karma and yagya are closely intertwined. Here it says karma is prescribed in the Vedas, and from karma comes yagya. By yagya, one maintains the body and attains the supreme. This is an important point. So again, today's verse, but for one who takes pleasure in the Atma, whose life is one of Atma realization, and who is fully satisfied in the Atma only, being fully satiated, for that person, there is no duty, karyam or karma. So that begs the question. I guess it doesn't really beg the question. It was answered in Prabhupada's purport. But based on the above, how does a person achieve contact with the Atma, or Atman realization, or satisfaction with Atma? Can anyone spontaneously volunteer something? I don't know how much I should put you on the spot. Nobody's excited to answer that. Well, it says in the purport that it's through performance of many yagyas that one becomes purified. So through yagya, one becomes purified. And ultimately, when one becomes pure, one comes in contact with the soul, with the self. It's our impurities that cause us to be identified with the body and the mind. So then the question, if such a person has no duty, I'm going to scroll back. So this is the verse we're discussing. And the last line says, for that person, there is no duty. That person who is self-realized, there's no duty. So then, if such a person has no duty, what do they do? So this is this question is it's an advanced. It's ahead of the following verses. The following verses answer this question. The following verses say that a self-realized person continues to act, or Krishna recommends that such a person should continue to act, but with a sense of detachment, without being attached to the results of the work, or without being attached to the fruits in order to obtain sense gratification. So detachment. Then he says, even I act to create the universes. So we're almost finished. The highest, just some little sort of notes at the end here. The highest yagya. So what is yagya? Now, yagya is translated as as sacrifice. It's often translated as sacrifice, but this word sacrifice in English does not do the word yagya much service. It's yagya is a beautiful concept. It can be very complex. It can be simple also. And as a matter of fact, in the 4th chapter, Krishna, after talking about yagya, in the next chapter, Krishna says that really to completely understand about yagya, you should approach somebody who is Atma Tattva. You should approach somebody who's self-realized. And you should serve that person and make that person your guru. So Krishna's explaining that the idea of yagya is subtle enough so that you shouldn't get everything just from a book. In order to fully understand, you need a guru. Now, the highest yagya is Sankirtan yagya, according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu appeared 500 years ago. And here are some pictures I found on the internet. Oh, look at that, Times Square. And again, Times Square. This is Sankirtan, chanting Kirtan. Sankirtan means two things. Sang means together, so Kirtan means to chant. And Anukirtan, Kirtan was going on in the Vedic times, so Kirtan is as old as time. And Kirtan means to chant, Krishna's names especially. And Sang means together with, but it also means complete or perfect. So Kirtan, Sankirtan is the perfect Kirtan. Of course, this is Rath Yatra, this is Kirtan also. And I threw this one, and this is a favorite of mine. This is a picture of Rath Yatra, a painting done maybe a couple of 250 years ago or something, I don't know. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'm just going to go through these last couple of slides quickly, just to give an overview. It's not to sort of remember too carefully. I mean, it's not meant for you to absorb too much, but because it has, it's just kind of detailed is all. But these are discussions of yagya. What is yagya? So Madhvacharya, who's a great Vaishnava, one of the main Vaishnavas who lived in the 13th century, he comments that yagya is performed by sound, and for the 4 different classes, sannyasis, or you could say maybe not classes, but ashrams, stations in life. Sannyasis, recitation of mantras is yagya. For vanaprasthas, their austerities are yagya. For grihastas, the karmas that are prescribed in the Vedas, or the acts that are prescribed, are yagyas. For brahmacharis, study of the Vedas, celibacy, introspection, and service to the guru are yagyas. And then he concludes this comment by saying fearlessness, charity, and the development of Atma Tattva, or knowledge of the soul, are applicable to all of the above. So yagya is not just, I just wanted to include this to emphasize that yagya is not just sacrifice. It's not as simple as that. And just to make it even more complex, the Vedas themselves, actually, these are the Kalpa Sutras. Kalpa Sutras are part of the Brahmanas. The Vedas are in 3 parts: the Samhitas, the Brahmanas, and the Upanishads. The Upanishads are often considered part of the Brahmanas. But the Kalpa Sutras are also guidelines for practice. So they describe various types of yagyas. There are 7 cooked food or domestic yagyas, 7 soma yagyas, 4 fire yagyas, 5 great yagyas, which are offerings to humans, animals, and devas that the householders do, 4 education or knowledge acquisition yagyas, and 16 rite of passage yagyas. So yagyas are complex. Then in the Bhagavad-gita, as we know, Krishna introduces the philosophy of Yagya in the 3rd chapter, which we just went through, verses 8 through 16, 17. And in the 4th chapter, he summarized some of the various types. This is just an overview, like offering possessions for higher worldly purpose, offering to the devas, offering to the Supreme, working toward liberation, restraining the senses, disciplining oneself through yoga and meditation. So that's my presentation. I think I said it was going to be short. That's pretty short, right? And back to stop share. Okay. So I'm hoping for some discussion, questions, discussion. If you don't ask questions or volunteer any discussion, then I have a test here. No, I'm kidding. I don't.
I understand that yajnas are prescribed. Can anybody, if somebody doesn't prescribe it for me, can I do any of those things like that you mentioned before? Or yajnas have to be prescribed? This is what I'm trying to find out. And somebody a lot more enlightened than I can be. Somebody, somebody who can give me a yajna prescription, or I can pick something and do it as a yajna.
Well, there's a couple of answers to that question. One is that our system is we follow Chaitanya, who appeared 500 years ago. So we consider that Sankirtan Yagya to be the most important yagya. And then we have our gurus, our line of gurus. And as I said, what is that verse? Why is it? If I have the first couple of words, the verse in what's it, 434, that one should accept a guru. Sevya.
Tadvidi pranipatena.
Pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. So tattvadarshis, the one should. This verse comes at the end of Krishna's, as I mentioned just a little while ago. Krishna in the 4th chapter discusses several yagyas or several approaches to yagya, and then it's almost a little codified. It's a little kind of summary or something, and then finally at the end he said tadvidhi pranipatena. So tadvidhi means tat means that referring back to all of his discussion about yagya, vidhi, and he says know that vidhi is an order. Know that by approaching and serving and being humble towards a tattvadarshi, towards a guru, somebody who knows the truth, the tattva. So that's our system. The fundamental system following Krishna is to approach a guru who knows about yagya and who can give you specific instructions, specific guidance, let's say. And within our specific tradition following Chaitanya, that this approaching a guru is the broad Vaishnava perspective, those who follow Bhagavad-gita. And those who follow Chaitanya consider the Sankirtan Yagya to be the most important, and to do something in connection with that Sankirtan Yagya. Sankirtan Yagya can be translated in English. I like to translate it as celebration of Vishnu or Krishna. And that celebration can be worshiping in the temple. It can be singing, any kind of singing Hare Krishna mantra, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram. It can be doing dance for Krishna. The dances are enactments of Krishna's Leelas, and it can be learning about Krishna's Leelas and absorbing the knowledge, and it can be sharing that knowledge with others. It can be participating in public. There's a lot of emphasis on celebration in public. So that's why I showed those pictures of Times Square, devotees chanting in Times Square and doing Rath Yatra. Those are all celebration activities. So even if it's just at home, some kind of home celebration with one's self, and generally the celebration involves two aspects. One is the names of Krishna, like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the other aspect are the Leelas of Krishna. So when we go out to do the Rath Yatra, we celebrate one of the Leelas of Krishna. And there are many, many Leelas. Leela means the pastime or play or drama that when Krishna appears or Vishnu appears on the earth, then he performs kind of a play or drama, and he involves all of his associates in that. So we celebrate that. I don't like the word so much glorify, but it's a celebration, it's a party, it's a fiesta that's involved with this with these Leelas and with the names of Krishna. So that's our particular emphasis. And then in life, the other aspects of yagya are they're not necessarily so important. Those can also be picked up if you study yagya, but what I just said about Sankirtan is the primary yagya. Is that okay, Susan?
Yes, yes, thank you.
And Guru, we place a lot of importance on Guru. That's very typical in the Eastern disciplines, not just Vaishnava, but many disciplines. And even you could say that within Christianity, there's the priests, that it depends on the relationship with the priests, but these priests and monks, they're meant to share the knowledge with the parishioners. So we expect some gurus to be experts. And in fact, we have many experts within our community. And?
Namaste, Guruji. I have a question.
Hare Krishna.
One of the concepts of the Gita, which I always struggle to completely grasp, is that of detachment, which you just mentioned. What is the difference between detachment and indifference? Because I feel sometimes you could, slide into that slope of just being indifferent to things versus detached. So I was wondering if you could maybe even give an example to, clarify that.
Well, there's different, the Gita recommends different processes to become detached. Although sometimes the devotees I believe they misunderstand the process to be some kind of mental, like gymnastics or something. It's not forcing yourself to be detached. There are several processes. Our process specifically is, as described here in these verses 8 through 17, the process is yagya. So what does that mean? That means we do something, we act. Karma. Karma means to act. It doesn't, forget what people say about good karma and bad karma, this kind of new age idea about karma. You know, if I give $1 to a beggar, that's good karma and it'll come back on me. I'll get $10 or something. That's not the karma that Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad-gita. Excuse me. Karma is action. It may be a little bit more complex, but think of it, at least in basic terms, as action. So then from action comes karma phala, which means the fruit of karma. Karma phal. Phal, most people who know Hindi know that word. So karma phal is the fruit of karma. It means the result. So if I work, I get a result. If I'm a farmer, the wheat comes, or the corn, or whatever. If I'm a lawyer, I work, I get money. If I'm an engineer, I work, I get money. So typically in modern society, the result of work is money. So now, what is that money used for? So this is the whole point. The money or the result of the work should be used for yagya, because we don't control the result. We control the work. We have the right. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturpur. Karmani eva adhikara. We have the right to work, but we don't have the rights to karma phala. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma phaleshu. No, phal. Phaleshu means we don't have our adhikar, our right is not in the phal. So there's a big distinction that Krishna is making. He makes it over and over again, and somehow or other, I think it's because of our attachment, we refuse to get the philosophy. But we work and we get results. So why is it that you work? Maybe you're more intelligent and a harder worker than Bill Gates. Maybe. It's possible. But you don't get as much as he does, because you don't have control over the results. Now people in modern society think that they have control. They say, well, I shape my destiny. You don't really shape your destiny. There's certain parameters within which you operate. So, and the results depend on the devas or the deva, on the devas who control everything, and the supreme Deva Vishnu. So those results have to be used in yagya. That's the process for detachment. So therefore, that's why in this verse, let me just do this quickly if I can. Share. Can I go back here? Can you see that? Now you can see the verse, right?
Yeah, I can see the verse.
Okay. So here, let me say, all right. So this is the summary to Prabhupada's purport. He says that a person who's satisfied has no duty. And then the second bullet point, as a result of many yagyas, their impiety is cleansed. So impiety means also attachment. It means attachment to to the material world. And at the bottom, the last bullet point, they are not interested in material activities or enjoyments. That means they're detached from material activities, enjoyments. So this impiety and attachments are basically the same. So let me stop that. So it's through the yagya. It's not an easy thing. And there's other processes too. That's the point of yoga also. Yoga is meant to turn the mind within to the Atma and to become detached from the sense contact with the objects. So technically, very technically, we have senses, knowledge senses and working senses. So our senses are attached. It's like a magnetic attraction that we're attached to the sense objects. Or repulsed. We could be repulsed as well. So if I walk by something in New York City and it stinks, I'm immediately repulsed. I want to avoid that. Or if I smell a fragrance, I might go into the mall and be attracted to the Cinnabon place or something. We smell a fragrance. So that smell, all the senses are like that, just drawn to the objects. So Krishna explains that Dhyato Vishayan Pungsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sangjayate Kama. Kamat Kroto Pajayate, all the rest. So Dhyato means just contemplating, although it kind of sounds like meditation, but just thinking about. Dhyato Vishaya. Vishaya means the sense objects. Indriyani, Indriyani, the objects of the senses. Dhyato Vishaya. So just thinking about these things, Dhyato Vishayan Sangha Steshu Bhajayati. So Sangha means attachment. So the attachment comes just from contemplating. It's an automatic thing. So it's not just like you're going to all of a sudden just say, okay, I'm going to be aloof from this stuff. We're not constructed like that. We're in this world and we're bound to be attached. We're attached in so many ways. We're attracted to and repulsed by so many things. We're caught up in this world and we can't just make up our minds to be some way. It's not so easy as that. Otherwise, everyone would be like some high platform of spirituality. It's not an easy thing. So there's a process, and the process is yagya, or yoga is a process, real yoga, I mean advanced yoga. These are processes for achieving in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna explains yoga and says that it requires celibacy, it requires removing oneself from like going to the forest or being aloof from the city, all that. We've fashioned a modern society it's not amenable to that kind of ancient yoga. What we are offering here in the Vaishnava society is much more practical. Celebration of Vishnu Krishna is a very practical thing, but it requires dedication. It requires service. It's based on service. Prabhupada explains that doing bhakti is also yagya. All the processes of bhakti. The Prahlad Maharaj talks about 9 processes. I don't know how familiar you are with the philosophy of the Bhagavatam, but Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam describes the philosophy of the Vaishnava philosophy. and in a very profound way. So there's a verse that's often quoted by the followers of Bhagavatam, and he prescribes 9 different ways that one can do different service, different types of services, categories of services, or categories of bhakti. So these processes, and Chaitanya also describes, there's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam that Chaitanya quotes. Krishna is playing with his friends in Vrindavan, and Krishna is praising the trees. I love this verse because it has to do with nature and Krishna's relationship with nature. He's praising the trees and saying that the trees are selfless. They give themselves, that they provide fruits, they provide shelter, and sometimes they even provide their wood themselves. So trees are selfless beings, and then he's encouraging that we should be like that. And Chaitanya then describes 4 different ways that we can give ourselves and serve. He says by words, by intelligence, by money, and one can give one's life. And Prabhupada describes those 4 ways as kind of progressive. If we're just sort of casually involved, and we can use words, we can chant Hare Krishna, and we can talk about Krishna consciousness. If we are intelligent, then we can develop some strategy, or we can use our intelligence in some way to maybe further the cause of Krishna consciousness. If we have money, we use our money. That's really getting down to our core attachment. And then if we are completely dedicated, we can sacrifice our life. So that's quite a long response.
Makes a lot of sense though. I was contemplating on all the things you said, but definitely that answers my question, and a lot more than that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Anyone? Challenges? Anyone want to say? I have a friend, whenever I write something, I'll have some ideas. I send it to him. He lives in London or England, and he sends me back his arguments. He'll say, well, what about this? You said this, you said that. So I find it very healthy that he's giving me, and then he puts himself in the position. Maybe I'll be writing about a position that's against a materialistic society or something. So then he'll take the position of the opponent, and we'll go back and forth.
I actually found it very interesting that you said about good karma and how you sort of spare $1 to a homeless person, but really that is again being attached to good karma, with the expectation that in your next life you get the rewards for that. And I feel to a large extent I also operate with that mentality. But so were you saying that really there is no concept of good and bad in karma, and it's really purely action consequence? Or to a certain extent it is okay to be attached to good karma, maybe not for benefits in the afterlife, but just for the sake of it?
But karma is very closely linked with yagya.
Mhm.
So understanding karma properly, I mean, there is that new age idea about good karma, bad karma, but really to understand it properly from the perspective of the Gita, it's very closely linked with yagya. So in the Vedas, the yagyas were meant for purifying individuals and societies of sins. I don't like the word sin. They're purifying individuals and societies from offenses, mainly offenses against nature. Usually within Christianity, a sin is more some kind of moral offense against the moral codes of society. That's a little bit how sin is interpreted. But in the traditional sense, for example, if I'm cooking a meal, according to Manu Samhita, if I'm cooking a meal, I'm going to kill some animals or plants inadvertently. If somebody cooks, they may inadvertently kill an insect or something. So that killing, I'm responsible for the killing. Now, in the Jain religion, they go around brushing all the insects in front of them, the sadhus anyway. And within the Jain religion, generally there are no farmers, because farming itself is a lot of killing. You're out there in the fields just inadvertently killing things. So that's a problem for Jains. But for Vaishnavas, followers of the Upanishads, Vedanta, Vedas, we do yagya to purify ourselves from all of these, from just participating in the world. We do all kinds of things, participating if we. These are like ancient prescriptions talking about accidentally killing an insect. But if we drive a car down the street, we're killing all kinds of insects. We kill birds accidentally, where the birds fly into our windows. And there's all this killing going on. If we live in the United States, if we eat vegetables, they're killing with pesticides, all of that stuff. So killing is an aspect of this society we live in. So the yagya is meant for purifying. It's also meant as a expression of gratitude. People talk about gratitude, but the pop idea of gratitude is that, oh, I'm grateful. It's like some kind of mental exercise. You're not grateful for anything. What are you doing? If you're grateful, then you do something. So yagya is an expression, it's a reciprocation with the higher authorities for giving us our necessities of life. So one, it's acting. Yagya is this process for becoming purified from the attachments in the world and becoming purified from all the offenses that we commit just by living here. And then it's a demonstration of reciprocation, of real gratitude for the necessities that the higher powers are giving us. And then it's also a means for connecting to the Supreme. Gradually, we connect to the Supreme. The yagya is very closely linked with karma yoga. So these are all ways of connecting with the Supreme. So again, it's a really complex response to your questions, but this idea of good karma, bad karma, giving a buck to the beggar, it's very simplistic, and it doesn't really fall in the category of becoming purified from all the offenses that we're committing by just being here in this destructive place. And I mean, we're sort of, to just an aside, our modern society is more destructive than any society has ever been in history. I mean, we use technology to just go around and destroy the earth, you know, whatever we want. We want to chop down a forest, fine. We have a huge machine to do that. So imagine all the destruction we're causing. So to try to, I'm going to say purify, to try to atone for these sins against nature and against others, Yagya, and I'm summarizing now, I mentioned these already, to reciprocate with the higher powers and to work towards liberation, karma yoga. So this is Yagya, and that's the proper application of karma. Rather than just being concerned, yeah, that's cool if I give $1 to the guy, or, you know, it's just not really within this really profound and deep philosophy. It's like, yeah, go ahead and give $1 to the guy, but that's really not. It's unfortunate. It's like yoga. People talk about yoga. It's what yoga means is it means exercises to the in the modern society. It doesn't mean yoga like Krishna talks about yoga in the Bhagavad-gita, or Patanjali talks about yoga within the South Asian tradition. I don't like the word Indian. I like South Asian because it includes all of the countries. But within the South Asian traditions, yoga is something profound. It doesn't just mean that somebody is trying to get their abs tightened or something. So in the same way that the word yoga has been trivialized, the word karma also within the modern society has been dumbed down. Some hesitation, huh?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah, you look like that last look on your face. Like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I got fully.
No, it's a seismic change in thinking for me, because I've been operating the way you described of the good karma and the bad karma. Whereas from what I understand from what you just summarized was, it's the focus should be more on yagya rather than the karma, because there is going to be karma. Even every breath you take is going to have some karma, so that is unavoidable. So rather focus on the yagya aspect of it.
Yes, exactly. Yagya aspect of karma. Karma and yagya are very closely linked. And Gandhiji, normally we don't quote Gandhiji, but I love this one thing he says about yagya. He said, yagya implies that everyone in the universe, every being in the universe is a debtor, that we are in debt. And Prabhupada used to talk about, when I first became a devotee, you know, something, I don't know, it was like 500 or 800 years ago or something, right after the Civil War. So, yeah, when I first became a devotee, what was really notable to me was that Prabhupada said that we had debts to the demigods or the devas, to the ancestors. So all these debts we have. I thought, what does he mean by that? You know, I had just gotten out of the military. It was required in those days. So I spent 3 years in the military, and my mentality was, I don't owe nobody nothing. That was my idea. I paid my debt to society. I am free. I can do any damn thing I want. That was my mentality. And then Prabhupada was talking about this. he was speaking philosophy, and he was talking about debts, that we have debts. I was thinking, wow, that is really an interesting concept, but it's a fantastic concept. And without talking on too much, I like that. I read a couple of years ago, Gandhiji was talking about Yagya and saying that, and Prabhupada also says that we have to acknowledge our indebtedness to those who supply the necessities of life. I mean, this is really one of the reasons I write about this. I'm writing about Vaishnava culture and the environment. And Prabhupada explains this, but in my analysis, this idea that we feel no indebtedness whatsoever to nature, we can take whatever we want. And within environmental science, if you study environmental science, they explain how different systems work, natural systems, like atmospheric systems and ecosystems. So the idea being is that they want to understand how to maximize human ability to exploit those systems. So there is never an idea that there is any human indebtedness to the systems in which we operate. The only mentality is the irresponsible mentality is how can we, is just overexploit to however far we want to go. But that's overexploit. And then the more reasonable mentality is, oh, let's exploit to the maximum allowable by nature. But that's also, there's no question of indebtedness, that we're somehow subordinate to nature and we have some indebtedness to nature. And this is a culture. We don't feel indebted to our parents. We have no traditions in American culture. We don't feel really indebtedness to our parents. What to speak of ancestors? There's no ancestor worship. We're completely divorced from that. Within all these wonderful traditions, the Shinto tradition, the Hindu tradition, there's respect for ancestors, respect for the devas. Everyone respected the devas before the Abrahamic religions, before Islam and Christianity and Judaism. Everyone respected the devas. All the folk religions, Africa, Zoroastrianism or Parsi religion, the Chinese folk religions, all the Hindu religions, Shaivas, Vaishnavas, the Europeans, the pre-Christian European religions, everyone respected the nature, the powers of nature, the higher powers. However they saw them, they all respected. So today we've inherited a culture that's really gone awry. There's no feeling of indebtedness or like that we're somehow inferior to nature, that we have an obligation to act within some kind of constraints. So that indebtedness it's part of the yagya process. And you can see that how, this idea of yagya, sacrifice, we think of it as unique. I mean, if we study the Gita and maybe a little the Upanishads or the Vedas, we think of it as not unique. It's something that was in all societies, these sacrifices. And we think when we hear the word sacrifice, we think, oh, that's a human sacrifice. The Aztecs, they sacrificed humans or something. Or sacrifice is like a priest lighting a fire and putting something in the fire. But sacrifice is really an incredible concept. within Christianity, the Christ sacrificed himself on the cross, and so Christians no longer have to observe sacrifice like the old Jewish sacrifice. And then when Catholics especially go to communion, they take the wafer and the wine. That's participating in the sacrifice. So sacrifice is there. It's within all cultures. I mean, we've sort of hidden it in our modern culture, and the Jews, they used to sacrifice. Also, they used to have like animal and plant vegetable sacrifice, so then they stopped sacrificing, but they switched. They have the focus on knowledge. So they study the Torah and the Talmud, and so that's also a kind of sacrifice, knowledge, acquired spiritual knowledge. Yeah, the concept of yagya is just incredible. It's natural. I'll just say this one thing.
Yeah.
It's a natural societal concept that's been ruined. Yes.
What are the highest forms of sacrifice in the Vedic tradition? Like, let's say even beyond the Gita, what would be the, like, obviously I think Krishna consciousness, I think is like one like biggest yagya, but are there like other practices which one could do on a daily practical way to like practice yagya or or sacrifice?
Yeah, well, in the Gita, Krishna says yagyanang japa yogyosmi, that I'm the yagyanang japa yagya asmi. Asmi means I am. Yagyana means of all sacrifices, the sacrifice of japa. Japa means to chant on the beads, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, or Om Narayanayana, or whatever you chant. Jai Ram, Jai Jai, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Krishna. So these that's sacrifice. Madhvacharya says sacrifice is done through sound. So there's a simple one. In Mahabharata, after Yudhishthir, after the war was finished, Yudhishthir was so devastated that Mahabharata, the story, huh?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So after the war, Yudhishthir was so devastated by all the destruction that had happened, and then he was the king. He inherited the kingdom, so he felt personally responsible. So he wanted to do a huge sacrifice to atone for all the sin, for all this horrible destruction. So he did this huge sacrifice. Something that nobody could do in today's world. I mean, we think of those people as primitive. This is another thing I write, that we think we have the idea of what's primitive and what's advanced. There's a term in the United Nations that people use in economics, and it's called MEDC. A more economically developed country, and LEDC, less economically developed country. So they used to say developed or undeveloped or developing and all that. So, but anyway, so more advanced. And if you read a lot of history, they're concerned with technology as an indicator of advancement. But I'm writing about this, and I insist that our concept of advancement is completely off. How can we be advanced if we're ruining the planet? Is that advanced? If I go to your house and I see that you've destroyed your house, but you've got the latest iPhone and you've got fantastic TV or something, I'm just going to think you're like trailer trash or something. You know, I mean, it's just like, this guy is, you know, I go in there, oh, this guy is so great. You know, he's got all the latest computer games. He's got, you know, this, that, but yet your house is trashed. Everything's horrible. So look at this big patch in the ocean. We're ruining the ocean. We've got this huge garbage patch in the ocean. We've got problems in the atmosphere. After decades, we still can't cut back on the stuff that we use to grow crops, and it goes into the water table. We have these huge cities where we're overusing the aquifers. It's like Bangalore. I was living in Bangalore for a while. It's a big problem for them because all these big cities, they use the aquifers, you know. And if you use too much, that it's not replenishable. There's nothing you can do. So our modern society is, and we call ourselves advanced. How can we do that? It's like we're really just patting ourselves on the back for this. We're not advanced. We are the primitive ones. Those other societies that were living just fine, they were living fine for 1,000 years. Can you imagine a society like these old Egyptian societies, these dynasties? They would last for like 1,000 years. I mean, these people all had problems. They had wars, they had, you know, disease, they had all kinds of problems, but they were going on for 1,000 years. And then Indian societies, 1,000 years, long time. How long were the Celts? How long? I don't even know. The Celtish societies, all these societies, hundreds and hundreds of years. But we spend like 200 years. In 200 years, we're just destroying the planet. This is advanced? No. And one of the components is we have no regard for those who supply the necessities, these devas. We have no feeling of indebtedness, and yagya is part of that process of indebtedness. And so if we don't believe in devas or gods, at least we can believe that we are indebted to nature and the natural systems, that those are higher than we are. There's a book, okay, I won't say anymore, just one more minute. There's a book, there's this guy, Harari, I think his name is, Yuval Harari, he's an Israeli historian.
That's called Sapiens, yeah?
Yeah, Homo sapiens. So that's very well known. But he's also written another book, Homo Deus, meaning that humans are gods. So we are so advanced that we are now becoming devas. Oh yeah, we're becoming trailer trash, destroying our trailer. Okay.
Thank you. I think Dixon has his hand up, so go for it.
Oh, who's that? Oh, Dixon.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your wonderful class. I just wanted to say something and to corroborate the point that you were talking about, that through our civilizations and societies, there's been this notion of sacrifice. And I come from Africa, specifically Ghana. And growing up, and even still up to date, the traditional systems have festivals where like farming seasons, we have our own calendar, which is 9 months. But the months are like you have like 35 days in a month, according to that traditional calendar. And the farming season, the first products that come from the farms, they sacrifice that to the gods, to the ancestors and the gods.
Yes.
So it's interesting that you said that.
It's 7 o'clock. I think I've come to the limit. Atma, I'm looking at your picture, Atma. Sasha, I'm looking at yours too. For guidance, what should I do now? You're speaking, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, so we could wrap up with a couple of minutes of Hare Krishna Kirtan, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. You want to lead?
I'd be happy if you did, but only if that's only if you'd like to.
Yeah, sure I will. Oh, you know where I am? I just have to mention this because the oh, I don't know. No, the light was previously coming in. I'm in Florida, so I'm saved from that horrible weather you guys are getting.
Yeah, about I don't know, something like probably about a foot over here in New York City, maybe a little less of snow. And I think in Long Island, where my other place is, and I don't know what the ground looks like there, but I think a fair amount more over there, but I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's going to be really warm next week. So I think most of it's just going to melt naturally. I mean, really warm, not really warm by your standards, your current standards.
I went on the internet and it's like 10 degrees up there or something.
Yeah, with the wind factor, it's pretty cold. Yeah.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Imate Bhakti Vedanta Aminiti Name Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Those devotees like to join me expressing appreciation to His Grace Dayananda Prabhu. You can unmute yourself now. His Grace Dayananda Prabhu ki jai.
Haribol.